episode on this channel, I showed you the startup, the dyno session, and how the results were looking. I also mentioned that the next one was going to be about the first track day and how that went. What was my first impression of the new version of the Miata? And spoiler alert, it wasn't really what I expected, but I also have to do this disclaimer that I did more changes during the winter than I should have done at once. So let's dive straight into the race report, if you'd want to call it that, or just my track day evaluation and my first impressions of the new version of the Miata. So starting with the engine and the powertrain setup itself. It worked really good and it sounded really good. There weren't really any issues that I could tell from the engine or the powertrain. And for it being the first track day of the season, I guess it's really everything you can expect that happened in once. I was able to drive straight out of the bat, but I was hesitant because I didn't really feel that the car behaved in a way that I was expecting it. And I'm not only talking about the power setup or the engine. I did notice that, well, it's a bigger turbo, so you have to drive accordingly. And I started off the day with the lowest power setting. I slowly increased the settings a couple of steps, but I never really tried the maximum power. And the reason of that being because I didn't really feel that the car was behaving in the chassis as I was used to. And there's a good reason for it, but we'll get into that shortly. However, the car sounded really good and it gave me so much joy to just hear this engine scream with some boost. And yeah, I think the impressions that I got around as well was that it sounds fairly nice. It sounds like a big car now. The day started off sunny, but at halftime break, I hadn't really driven that much, but it also started to rain, which really messed with my mind because I was not really feeling the vibe. I think I had a lot of expectations on the first track day, and I haven't really been able to put that much time into the simulator during the off season that I would have wanted. So I really felt out of tune, and trying to experience the new car setup, both power wise but very much so setup wise in the chassis, really was a hassle, and I wasn't prepared for it being that big of a change. So what were the changes in the chassis? Well, if we start here in the front, I've raised the car, I've adjusted the anti-roll bar, I've adjusted the lower pickup point for the Knuckle, meaning that I've drastically reduced the camber, and I've also adjusted the caster angle. So one of the benefits of this is that I've reduced my air command. It really meant that my outside front wheel was not steering as much as the inside, but I wanted to go away from this a bit because I wanted to be a more direct steering. And the reason for this is that I want to develop the car not to be just a slow skiddy car that you can slide around for fun, but also you have to actually drive it. But this is the second big change. And if we move on to the rear of the chassis, here I have, as you'll see, changed to different knuckles that are drop knuckles. Because of this, I've also raised the suspension, meaning that my camber has changed quite drastically. This is also something I wanted because I wanted to have more mechanical grip and to wear the tire more evenly. In doing this, I also adjusted the anti-roll bar to be softer, just like in the front. I got the feedback from people who were watching saying that it looks like the car really wants to go forward and not slide at all. And well, I could really feel that in the car. If I was off throttle, immediately the car wanted to just straighten up. That's really sketchy, and it made the car feel really nervous and not at all what I was used to. I had found a setting before that made it feel like it was nice and fun to drive, and I could modulate the throttle and even change gears mid-drift without upsetting the car too much. I couldn't really do that now, which meant that in the transitions where I needed to go from second to third, I had to be very cautious. And for the front and rear, I had actually adjusted the damping quite a lot as well to find a base setting that I could work my way from. However, it was completely off, and it didn't at all really work with the anti-roll bar settings that I changed to. So at this point, you might be saying, hold up, why don't you, if you have adjustable anti-roll bars and adjustable damping, just change this on track? And you're absolutely right. I was about to do it, but then came the plot twist, the rain. And the fourth major change is maybe the smallest one of all, but it's my seating position. I'm sitting much further back and lower in the car, and this is because I had some issues with my head with the helmet on touching the hardtop if I weren't really crouching. Now, that's not something you want to be doing while you're trying to drive and drift a car. You want it to feel natural, and you want your seating position to be relaxed while still, well, maintaining your core strength. So this is something that I was trying to take care of, and it was the easiest thing I think I could have learned, but it's also something that took at least 1 or 2 outings on track to try to feel comfortable with. But the main issue is when you combine all these factors, it really was a completely different car, both from my input, what I was feeling, what the car was doing, and the power curve that we are having. It really is going to take some getting used to, and unfortunately, I also have to revert some of the adjustments that I've done to find a baseline of the car that I feel comfortable with again, to then be picking up the grip level that I want. One of the main issues I'm having right now, and that I felt during the first track day at Borås, was that the balance between forward bite and side bite was really off. I had a lot of forward bite once I actually got on the throttle, but my side bite was very low, and then when I was trying to flick it into the main hairpin, well, the car just kept sliding. And this is also something that made me confused, because the car used to have quite a good balance, even though I always felt that the side bite wasn't enough. But I do also have to say that I think that the rain that came during halftime also saved my track day quite a lot, because I was pretty frustrated with the car feeling so different and me not feeling that I could find where it wanted to be and how it wanted to drive, especially when you haven't been driving for half a year and the car was something completely different the last time. And saying that the rain saved my track day might be an exaggeration, but it at least allowed me to focus on one step at a time. So having the ground being wet, it really reduced the power curve behavior, and it also made the rear end behavior really get out of play. This meant that I could focus on what the steering was doing and feeling how this wanted to be driven, how much steering angle did I have, and what happens when I do a little bit more and when I try to flick it. It allowed me to be a bit more in tune with the steering, and that was really one of the biggest steps that I needed to feel comfortable again. And I was starting to enjoy driving it again. And as this was happening, me starting to feel what the steering wanted to do, building some sort of confidence in being able to control the car, well, it also started to dry up a bit. So that means that the grip level was slowly but steadily increasing. And I have to say that this is the biggest part of me saying that the rain saved my track day, to being able to focus on one thing and then gradually stepping into more grip and being focused on what is the rear end of the car doing. That made me also really feel the limitations of the rear end and how it is set up right now. And this was something I started to feel just as the track day was closing in on its end, so I didn't put in the time to adjust it anymore. Now, I never really got to feeling out what happens when I start to increase the power again when the grip level increases, but I'm not mad about it, because I am certain that I wanted to do some changes in the rear, and after looking at the in-car clips of me driving, I can really see what the car is doing and that it's not behaving like I want it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to consider and think about what adjustments I want to do to get the car to be more planted. And to state the obvious, it affected my commitment to the point that I wasn't committing fully. So yeah, the biggest issue was me. So if there's one key takeaway from this that I've actually heard about before and also listened to before, but it seems like I've forgotten about it and neglected it for this year, is to not do too many big changes at once. And that's also why I think I'm going to try to revert a little bit on the settings. The power level is not something I want to reduce or change, and it really is going to allow me to get more potential out of the car. And if there's one thing that I think we all need to remember, at least for me, this is supposed to be really fun. And if it's too much to consider and take in at once, that's really bringing the fun out of it. Even if this is where I want to end up in the future, well, we have to take it in smaller steps, it seems. I'm not completely sure that I'm going to include this in the video, but one issue that I noticed on the dyno that I have been thinking about if it has something to do with this is that the rear end seems to be flexing quite a lot when on throttle. It doesn't seem to be with the stroke, but I have a lot of toe gain. But anyways, as I said, I'm not Sure, I'm going to include this in the video, but it's been on my mind, and maybe it has something to do with it. And I think maybe that's what I had to say about the first track day. The car performed, I didn't really break anything, I didn't get as much driving as I wanted, and if there's one thing I can take away from this, it's that I brought a lot of more fresh tires with me back home than I was expecting. But anyways, the to-do list for the Miata is still very long. And first up is some post-track day maintenance and caretaking. I'm gonna drop in something that I didn't really include in the last video, but this is what happened before the track day. And actually, if you're paying a lot of attention, it even happened before the dyno. The destroy or die rear knuckles and dual calipers and the hydraulic handbrake. So let's start with showing that, and then we'll get back to what's going on here and what's going to be happening in the future, and also what's my next track day. One of the changes for this season, other than the new turbo setup, is that I'm going to move over to destroy or die super knuckles in the rear as well. I have a pair in the front along with the lower control arms, and I'll tell you why. You've probably seen this box in the background of my videos, and if you know anything about the Miatas, you'll have realized that this is the knuckles. So I've already prepared these with new bearings, new hubs, and I've also moved over the bushings. But this one goes here, and this one is for the left side. So let's talk about why I'm moving over to the super knuckles in the rear as well. The first reason is quite obvious, and it's that it's a dual caliper knuckle. You can see it has mounting provision here and also in the rear for 2 sets of brake calipers. Why I'm going to dual caliper is because I want to add hydro e-brake. I've been running with the stock wire e-brake for 2 years now. I've tried adjusting it, setting it, and it works sometimes. It works if you are determined to make it work. You can make it work and lock up the wheels. However, not when you're going in a straight line. So you need to really throw the car on the angle, and then you can have it lock up. And you might ask yourself, well, wouldn't it be easier to go to an inline setup? And I was considering going for the inline setup because it would have saved me a lot of hassle with not having to buy these and spend the money on this and the new bearings and hubs and all this. And there was one more thing that made me decide to go for these knuckles still, and that's the second reason. And it's that they are drop knuckles, so the center is 30 millimeters lower than the stock one. This allows you to have a better ride height, and if you've seen lowered Miatas, you see that they are starting to camber in really much when you lower them. And that's because it's limited in the toe and camber adjustment, because you can only adjust the lower control arm on the stocks. And that's fine if you're going for a stock power Miata or a low power Miata, as I have had. This year, going for more power, I also want more grip. I did raise the car a little bit last year to get rid of some of the camber, and it's sacrificed just a tiny bit of ride height, but the car was still so low, and I was running such small tires that I would still hit the undercarriage in the rear as well as in the front. If you remember me talking in a previous video about trying to jack the car up in the front, for example, it's been sitting really low. So in the rear, the drop knuckles allow me to raise the car's geometry with the A-arms, and that allows me to have better control of the camber adjustment and toe adjustment, because I can still get the ride height that I want to be kind of low for style and for show. And of course, I do have an hydraulic e-brake and a brake master cylinder laying in the car, or well, right now it's in the shelf. You might have seen it also in the videos, but we'll get to that just in a minute. As you can clearly see, I've already removed the old knuckles, and it really is quite an easy process to change these knuckles out. The hardest part was pressing the bearings and the hubs. I actually managed to borrow a manual press, believe it or not, from my friends up in Vårgårda. Shout out to Oscar, who let me in there so I could borrow it. We were supposed to weld some stuff as well, but it didn't work out that time, and we'll see if we try again another day. I wanted to include some of this wrenching, but I know that it also feels a bit weird because this is something that was done before the track day. However, I didn't really want to include it in the dyno and startup video or starting this video off with it. So you get it here in the end, making sure that you get the axle into the hub when you position the knuckle, and then it's the top and lower bolts followed by the center nut to hold the axle into place. So for now I'm just gonna go with the main set of calipers. And the second set of calipers are going to be installed along with the hydro. But first I wanted to see how the car sits with the new knuckles. And I don't think I have too much footage of the preparation of the knuckle, otherwise I would have overlaid this when I was talking about it. But regardless, it's time to fit the wheels back on and see how the car sits. I'm not expecting it to be that good. I'm not super happy with the fitment as it is now. It's kind of weak, but I will be changing my tire dimensions. This is currently 195 45 15 in the rear. I will be changing to a 205 50 15. So there's going to be some difference in the tire size itself, but as it sits now, the top of the rim is just in line with the fender. We'll see what we'll do about that with the new tires on, and probably gonna spacer it out just a tiny bit. It's also going to need an alignment, but for now the knuckles are mounted, and we'll see what we can do with this. Now it's actually time to install the second set of calipers, and with that comes the actual handbrake lever itself. So I really made this bracket as a test piece. The time was short and it really just needed to get into place. If it's going to be strong enough is something that I will notice when I try using it a bit, but step one is getting it mounted and seeing if I like the position when I'm actually driving. And well, I'm a right side of the shifter kind of guy. Most people usually run these in between the steering wheel and the shift knob, but I've been driving at the simulator with it. I think I'm used to it being there. Regardless, the second set of calipers went onto the car, but that's no fun to see. However, what was left to do is that you actually have to route some hydraulic lines for these. And with the knuckles that I bought from Destroy or Die, I also purchased their standalone hydro kit, and it comes with everything you need, except for, in my case, I needed a different banjo bolt for the master cylinder. It's simply that the master cylinder had a different thread pitch, so the one they sent didn't fit, but it fit to the calipers, and that's the most important part, I guess. And I got all the way up to here editing this video and currently doing the voiceovers when I'm realizing that I don't even have an outro filmed for this one. But as I promised previously in the video, I would tell you what my next event was. And the event that was coming up after this was Vicious Delicious. It was the same track there in Borås, but yeah, 2 days of driving instead, which was good for me because I had some really big troubles on the first day. But I'll cover that in a separate video. So I suggest you drop a follow if you haven't already and turn on those post notifications so that you'll get a notification when I'm dropping the video of Vicious Delicious. And I hope that it's going to be ahead of time for my third track day, which is currently in 2 weeks. So yeah, talk to you later and thanks for watching.